On September 11th, I began a journey that I never really expected to go on. As Judith mentioned, my office was on the 64th floor of the North Tower, and I was a customer relations manager for the Port Authority. However, the journey I want to tell you about today begins when I get home. And I got home in the evening, and I had good information on all my staff except for 3 people. These 3 people were all new to our organization, to my organization. They were bright, the best in customer service you could ask for. They were really, really good. And we were working on a great career path for them. But I desperately needed to find them. I needed to know if they were okay. Everyone else I knew was okay. So I went up to my bedroom, I got my contact list. I stared at it, and I stared at it, and I stared at it. And there was one phone call I really, really did not want to make. And that was to the newest member of our staff, who was a young man whose wife was 9 months pregnant. So I said, okay. I went downstairs and, believe it or not, poured myself a glass of wine, took 3 sips, and dialed the phone. And I didn't know what I was going to say, but I just needed to find out if he was okay. And his wife did answer the phone. I just blurted out, "Have you heard from Michael?" And she said, "Yes." I said, "Thank you, God, and he's okay." So that phone call, what I thought was the most difficult phone call to make, was out of the way. I then proceeded to call the 2 other people whose names were Nancy and Arlene. And once again, I called repeatedly to Arlene's house. I finally got through to her 18-year-old son, who said he was waiting for word from the authorities. So, okay, I knew that status. Then I proceeded to call Nancy. Nancy lived alone in Secaucus, New Jersey, and I called her house. I left messages on her machine so many times I probably broke it. But I knew that her sisters and her parents lived nearby. And I knew that if I kept leaving messages, one of them would get that message and call me. And they did. One of the sisters did call me the following morning. The next day, these families, what they were doing is were canvassing all the hospitals. They were looking for their loved one. They were putting out, there's missing posters. They were distributing that anywhere, any place that they could think of. And we did talk during the day. And we all decided collectively that they were fine. Everything was going to be fine. We had a lot of hope. And what we all decided collectively is that they didn't have their ID when they left the building, or they had amnesia. And then later on, I decided to myself, we probably saw too many soap operas. But anyway, this is what we decided. They were fine, and no one knew who they were. So that was September 12th. And I stayed in touch with them throughout the evening. September 13th, Thursday, 2 days later, I was in my office, my makeshift office, very, very early in the morning. My director called me and said, "Come to my office, please." I said, "Okay, this is great. I know what's happened. They found him. He's going to have the details because he's the boss." So I ran out of my office like a crazy woman. I flew down the stairs, didn't use the elevator, flew down the stairs. My feet didn't even touch the steps. I ran into his office, and I walked in, and he said, "Sit down." And I said that my fantasy was now over. I realized that my fantasy was now over. So we discussed what was going on, and they hadn't found any live person in the rubble since the day before. So our department and our agency decided that we were basically going from rescue to recovery, civilian style. And so I had to process that. I did not tell Nancy and Arlene's family, by the way, that we had done that we had changed our mindset of how we were going to approach things. So that was that. And so weeks go on, months go on. I'm still in contact with their families. We talk every day, every other day. We're always in touch. And our conversation is always about one thing. When are they going to find Arlene? When are they going to find Nancy? Why can't they find him? Are they going to find him? We always talked about the same thing. And I could sense that the families were losing hope, as was I, to be honest with you. So then on December 24th, Christmas Eve, fully 3.5 months after 9/11, the medical examiner's office identified Arlene and her remains. And her family could then bury her, for something that they were truly appreciative, they were very grateful for. And finding of Arlene's remains really re-energized Nancy's family, that they were going to find Nancy, because Nancy and Arlene were standing right next to each other when the building collapsed. So they were very courageous. Both these families were extremely courageous during this time, but Nancy's family was really re-energized. And they said, and we continued to have our conversations, but now it was more like, well, why can't they find Nancy? She was standing right next to Arlene. Are they going to find her? When are they going to find her? And I had no answers, but I was the sympathetic person on the other end of the phone. I didn't have any answers. We just talked. And that was the basis of our relationship, was talking. So anyway, 1 month passed. There's no remains for Nancy. The second month begins, there are no remains for Nancy. And you know, it was getting a little depressing, actually. Then, in the middle of February, the medical examiner's office identified Nancy. And so what we did is we convened a notification team from the Port Authority, my agency, and that consisted of a police inspector, a doctor from our medical services department, and me. We made our way up to Union City, New Jersey, to her parents' house. Her parents met us at the door, and we went into the living room. We sat down. The police inspector then gave them the details, the official details of the recovery. And so then there also, the police inspector had a bag with him. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't question what police inspectors are doing. I don't know what's in the bag. Anyway, so he gives the official details, and then, you know, and the family's there, his sister, the parents, and everything are there. And then the police inspector opens the bag. And believe it or not, he pulls out Nancy's singed but intact pocketbook. And we were speechless. We were absolutely breathless. We could not believe this. And so it was just remarkable. And Nancy's family, much like Arlene's family, was very, very grateful that they now had something to bury. They now had their Nancy back, and they could bring her home. So there, you know, we were doing all that, and the family was also absolutely, totally amazed that they had her pocketbook. They just couldn't believe they had their Nancy back in her pocketbook as well. Well, anyway, as I said, the base of our relationship was talking on the phone. And so months passed. We continued talking on the phone about a variety of things. Well, those months have turned into years. And, you know, so we continue to talk. As a matter of fact, we talk so much that the phone battery goes dead, and you have to go get another one. We just talk we talk about anything and everything. We just talk. We also came up with our own tradition. We always go to the 9/11 service that the Port Authority has at St. Peter's Church, which is right around the corner from here. And we always go to the service, and then we usually go out for something to eat. On the 10th anniversary, however, that was when the Memorial Plaza opened, and it was for families only. So I said, after our service, I said, well, you know, I'll wait outside. After you go have your visit, and then we can go then and have our meal as we usually do. And they said, oh, no, you're coming. And I said, I can't come. I'm not a member of the family. And they said, oh, no, you're coming. You're our sister-in-law, you're our cousin. And so it started as a purely professional relationship with their families, and now I'm part of the family. Thank you.